And I think it's a little easier for us to imagine them coming out their door in the morning and hearing and seeing and smelling things in a different way from what we have been able to experience in the age of the Industrial Revolution and following. And that difference is something that we are just coming to appreciate, and it will inform tonight's conversation. I am really looking forward to going into this piece of sustainability. I think we each have a lot to learn, even though we may be familiar with these things from the past. But let us listen with good attention to our two presenters tonight. They are Stuart Moody and Karen Wilhelmsen. I'll introduce them each right before they speak. Stuart grew up writing letters to elected officials on the issues of land use, air pollution, and wilderness protection. He developed lots of agendas and projects that have turned into 5 municipal ordinances and resolutions regarding waste reduction and activity in schools, plastic bag waste being eliminated, and so on. And that was all before he gave us the favor of coming to Tucson and bringing that experience to help us in our sustainable activities here. So he came here in 2012, and his communities of activities have included drafting a climate adaptation plan for the city's climate change committee, convening the Shade Tucson Coalition, and co-founding a neighborhood resilience working group, and most recently, facilitating Sustainable Tucson's Ambassadors of Sustainability program, which if there's time, maybe he can mention briefly tonight. In his spare time, Stuart teaches music at Khalsa Montessori School, and he is going to open our conversation. And with that, I will turn it over to you, Stuart.
Thank you, Dwayne. Thank you for that kind introduction. I've lived in Sam Hughes neighborhood since moving here in 2012, and we had a relative come and visit who then went to Phoenix to spend a little while. One morning, late spring, he took a walk up one of their rocky knolls to admire the view. There are some really great rocky knolls in Phoenix to do that. From the high point, he could hear coming seemingly from every side the sound of leaf blowers. So this is in tune with what Dwayne was asking us to think about, our great-great-great-grandparents and what we're exposed to now.
Stuart, you accidentally muted yourself.
Make sure everyone knows.
Stuart, you're still muted.
How about that now? Can you hear now okay? Must be.
Yeah.
So we've all had our morning walks disturbed one time or another by leaf blowing. I myself have passed by great clouds of dust. The main idea today is that our human inclination for invention has led to increasingly mechanized, motorized, and digitized tools for work. Sometimes, though, our inventions don't lead to better results. We need to practice discernment in our choice of tools. We would like to suggest that it is time to rethink our commitment to leaf blowers and to gas-powered landscape equipment in general. Success in this endeavor will be a win for the environment, our neighborhoods, and especially for landscapers, who are the ones most affected. I will briefly introduce a little bit about leaf blowers, especially. They're not the only gasoline-powered equipment, but they are the most ubiquitous in our experience, and the issues apply to this whole class of equipment. Karen is much more holistic in her presentation. So I'll give a super brief history of leaf blowers. I will outline the harmful effects of leaf blower use. Then Karen will go in depth into issues of air pollution and a special program the county has implemented for the last, I believe, 3 years to cut pollution. As time allows, I will then speak about what we can do at home, but also especially as members of our community to get quieter and cleaner alternatives. And I will share 7 recommendations that we are making to elected officials. So here's the history. The first leaf blowing device, would you believe?
Stuart,
Was-
I'm sorry. May I just invite Karen to unshare her screen so
Thank
that we
you.
can do that, and then we'll have that come back.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great-
For that instruction.
Great to see your faces. The first leaf blower was invented in Japan in the 19th century. It was hand powered. So some kind of bellows that blew the leaves out of where they didn't want them. The first motor-powered leaf blowers came in the late 1950s. They started becoming popular in the 1970s, and 20 years later, Burlingame, Sacramento, California, and other municipalities began phasing them out. Why were they doing that? There are 4 reasons. First is inefficiency. The hydrocarbon emissions from a half hour of yard work with a 2-stroke leaf blower are, depending on which study you're reading, but they're about the same as a pickup truck driving 3,900 miles. So in half an hour, the hydrocarbon output from a leaf blower will be equal to a motor vehicle having driven 1,100 miles. Air pollution is a close corollary to that. Despite minor improvements, 2-stroke engines are still inefficient. They emit outsized portions of carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, fine particulates, and 3 hydrocarbons in particular, all of which, as I understand, are considered cancer-causing. Benzene, butadiene, or Karen will correct the pronunciation if I've got that wrong, and formaldehyde. So there's inefficiency, there's air pollution on top of the inefficiency. Then there's the difficulty to actually use them according to instructions. A manufacturer's website recommends safe distances of 50 feet between leaf blowers and bystanders. This is nearly impossible to establish in urban environments. And the operators themselves cannot be 50 feet away from their operation. So they're exposed to the bulk of emissions, even if they're masked. So we have inefficiency, air pollution, difficulty to use properly, and then there's noise and hearing loss. Most gas-powered blowers these days operate between 70 to 100 decibels. Repeated exposure above 55 decibels can cause health problems, and these include hypertension and cardiovascular disease. Repeated exposure to volumes above 85 decibels, that first one was 55. If you're getting exposure above 85, it's destructive to hearing. The low frequencies of gas blower noise can travel farther and through walls, affecting, some people say, up to 90 homes surrounding a gas leaf blower, compared to 6 homes affected by a similarly powerful electric blower. So there's inefficiency, there's air pollution, there's the difficulty to use properly, and there's the noise and the hearing loss. Even without the hearing loss, I think we've all been annoyed listening to those blowers. And the 5th cause people don't think about as much is actually destruction of the soil. The power of blowers wears away topsoil, it disturbs ecosystems, it impoverishes the soil. And this includes microorganisms, insects, worms, anyone who's making up home in the surface or near the surface of the soil. They're going to be disturbed by this extreme wind that comes. And when that happens, it creates the need for more external inputs, such as fertilizers. So this adds to the climate changing impact of blowers. There are alternatives, and we'll talk about those in a while, but I would love to let Karen have the floor. She'll go back on the air pollution issue in particular, and then talk about a very nifty program that the county has started.
All right, Karen, if you'll allow me to introduce you. Karen has been working hard and joyfully, I understand, as the outreach and education or an outreach and education person for Pima County Department of Environmental Quality, and she's been doing that since 1999. As an environmental education program manager, she provides youth and adult education programs regarding air quality, alternate modes of transportation, and related environmental topics. And I've read a little bit about experiences of kids when she is doing a presentation, and they sound fabulous, and the kids get delighted as she finds creative ways to do this. Karen also manages the travel reduction program for 7,000 Pima County employees and the Cut Down Pollution Program, Lawn and Garden Equipment Emissions Reduction Program. Karen earned her Bachelor of Arts in Fine Arts and a Bachelor of Arts in Interdisciplinary Studies, incorporating environmental sciences, marketing, and fine arts, both from the University of Arizona. And we are looking forward to hearing from what Karen has to say about what the county is doing and how we, Sustainable Tucson, can collaborate in this endeavor. Let's hear it from you, Karen.
And I think you're muted, Karen.
We are not hearing you. Yes, you are still muted.
Sorry about that.
There
I'm
you
on
go.
the laptop and it doesn't allow me to see a lot of things at once. So now you can see the screen now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So what I'm going to talk about today is air quality here in Pima County. I know a lot of you probably already know a bit, but I'm just covering the basics. So hopefully it's not too basic, but enough new information for you. But I will also focus on our cut down pollution, the lawn and garden equipment emissions reduction program, and touch a little bit on regulating options that are available. First off, for air quality, we have 15 air quality monitoring sites throughout Eastern Pima County. And you see the picture of our staff that operates and maintains all that equipment and report on the data. And at those sites, we look for criteria air pollutants, ground level ozone, particulate matter, both the coarse and the fine particles, the PM10 and 2.5, carbon monoxide, nitrogen oxides, sulfur dioxide, and then also lead. Now the lead, we only do, I think it's about every 7 years. It's just a periodic monitoring to make sure the levels are still low, and they're negligible, never, whenever it comes back up again. Over time, since in the early 1970s, with the establishment of the United States Environmental Protection Agency and the Clean Air Act, air quality has greatly improved. I mean, the chart only goes back to 1990, but you can see the trend. Now, the line that goes across, it's at 9 parts per million there, that indicates the National Ambient Air Quality Standards, the health standard for carbon monoxide is 9 parts per million. Anything below that level, air quality is considered good. Anything above, we're exceeding it, and we could get in trouble if we exceeded too much and too often. So, in addition, nitrogen dioxide, those levels are well below the health standard, as well as sulfur dioxide, well below. So good news for us in that regard. For particulates, we have fine particles and coarse particles. So for the PM2.5, the fine particles, they're microscopic, you cannot see them. And our levels are well below the national standard as well. And the fine particles come from combustion, so burning fossil fuels, gasoline, emissions from vehicles, emissions from burning gasoline and gas-powered lawn and garden equipment, forest fires, all that contributes to the fine particles. The coarse particles come from crustal materials, so like driving on dirt roads, construction activity that digs into the ground, kicking up clouds of dust. Wind is a big thing too. For PM 2.5, for the fine particles, we really only see it exceeding the standard on New Year's Eve and 4th of July because of the fireworks. Also New Year's Eve because of the fires in fireplaces. For coarse particles, we tend to have issues with that on periods of high wind. And then also sometimes there's transport, especially from Pinal and Maricopa counties. Sometimes dust settles in overnight and we wake up to mountainless views.
About 200 people in the Tucson area will die this year from breathing airborne dust. Got dust? Keep it down. For information on how you can help, contact Pima County
So it's a
Department of
very old
Environmental
video.
Quality.
Even our logo is different, our contact information is different. So in 1999, we actually violated the standard for coarse particles, the PM10, and our department did a restructuring. We had rules were strengthened. We had new inspectors, 4 dedicated just to look for airborne dust. And then we strengthened our outreach and education program. And that's how this video got to be. That was way back in 2004. Still kind of relevant, actually. Data might have changed, though. Sorry about that. So ozone is another significant air pollutant that we sometimes have issues with here, especially our season is April through September. And you could see in this chart, the health standard, the NAAQS, it's strengthened through time to better protect public health. And you can see on the left, in the last 5 years worth of data, so our current standard is 0.07 parts per million, and we are basically right at that. And if we have 3 years in a row that exceeds that, then we're going to become non-attainment. But right now, we're still in attainment, and we're not raising any red flags, but we are very close. Oh, and by the way, the EPA right now is taking a look at this standard again, and they are looking at strengthening it again. So we'll see what happens in the next couple of years. So the air pollutants that come from gas-powered lawn and garden equipment, some of them are criteria air pollutants. So the ozone, so ozone is kind of complicated. It doesn't just come out of, from burning the gas and oil mixture in gas-powered equipment or other sources. It has to be created. So there are precursors, and 2 of them at least come from gas-powered lawn and garden equipment, including nitrogen oxides and volatile organic compounds. And I like to compare a creation of ozone to baking a cake. So when you bake a cake, you have a bowl, right, that you're going to put your ingredients in. Well, Tucson is kind of like a bowl. We have mountains all around us, and they sometimes help to hold air pollutants in, especially when there's no wind, and in this time of year also with temperature inversions that might help to keep pollution in. Although we don't have to worry about ozone in this time of year because I'll get to that in a second. So when we're baking a cake, we have a bowl and we're putting different ingredients, flour, sugar, eggs, chocolate, of course. But the ingredients for ozone include the nitrogen oxides and volatile organic compounds from lawn and garden equipment, gasoline, paint products, different kinds of chemicals, fumey things. Even trees, actually. Some trees emit VOCs. Anyway, in our bowl of that mixture, we have also the sun. So in the summertime, the sunlight and the intense sunlight and the ultraviolet radiation creates a chemical reaction that bakes those ingredients into ground level ozone, just like when you put that batter in a pan and in the oven, the heat bakes those ingredients into a warm, yummy, fluffy stuff. A little different from ozone, but you get the idea. Particulate matter also comes from gas-powered lawn and garden equipment. They tend to mention the PM 2.5, the fine particles, more, or as a major emitting, because of it, it's burning the fuels. But PM 10, especially with leaf blowers, can increase as well, because if they're, blowing dust around, that could be an issue. Carbon monoxide, it also comes from lawn and garden equipment, the gas powered, and then carbon dioxide. As far as our department goes, carbon dioxide is not a regulated pollutant that we monitor for. We've not been asked to do anything about tracking it or monitoring or enforcing anything about it. So that's out of our hands. But the first three are significant: the ozone, well, the NOx, the nitrogen oxides, volatile organic compounds, particulate matter, and carbon monoxide are all criteria pollutants that we look for. So the question is, how much of air pollution that we wind up breathing comes from lawn and garden equipment? Well, I can't say for sure. I don't know. But in 2017, PDEQ hired the Eastern Research Group to conduct an emissions inventory, and they listed many, many, many things that contribute to air pollution. And they did include gas-powered lawn and garden equipment, but it was lumped in with non-road motor vehicle emissions. But that report, if you wanted to see it, is available online. It's easiest to find it if you just type in, Google search for PDEQ emissions inventory, and it should pop up. But in addition to that, every year, the Clean Air Program, and along with the stormwater program, we do an annual evaluation of our outreach programs to see what people in the community know or are absorbing from the work that we do. And a few years ago, we added a couple of questions about gas, lawn, and garden equipment. And the results snip right here was from last May, when we did the last survey. And we found that 10% of respondents use a gas-powered lawnmower for about 43 minutes per month on average. And 14% households use other gas-powered equipment like chainsaws, hedge trimmers, those sorts of things, for an average of 52 minutes per month. So you might be able to do some calculations there to figure out how much guesstimate air pollution comes from using lawn and garden equipment. So our cut down pollution program, many years ago, so in 1999 and 2000, we had a mow down pollution program. And that was just, a day that was picked. We invited the public to schedule appointments. They came to a site, they turned in their equipment, and we handed them vouchers. 20 years later, in 2020, we established the Cut Down Pollution Program, and where most everything is online. And we modeled it after the Mowing Down Pollution Program that Maricopa County has up in Phoenix area. So basically, people turn in their gas-powered lawn and garden equipment for vouchers towards the purchase of zero-emission equipment. And it's for residential and commercial industries. So for a household, they can turn in one lawnmower and receive a $150 voucher towards the purchase of an electric mower or other electric or manual lawn and garden tools. And also up to 5 additional handheld devices, but they all have to be different, like one chainsaw, one leaf blower, one string trimmer, those kinds of things. And they could get a total of up to $400 worth of vouchers. And the vouchers are only good at Home Depot stores in the Tucson area. There's 6 of them around. So for commercial businesses, we do not restrict the quantity of items that they can turn in because they use more equipment. And we also increase the voucher for mowers to give a little bit of a better incentive for them to use the program, although the amounts really are piddly compared, at least for commercial. They use equipment that's of more value than compared to the vouchers that we provide. At any rate, the devices, the chainsaws, hedge trimmers, those sorts of things are also only $50 each. Here is a testimonial from one of our happy customers.
Gus Gomez used his gas-powered lawnmower for 20 years.
Started to smoke and it's like, I told my wife, I think it's time to get a new one.
That's when he applied to the Cut Down Pollution Program, which lets Pima County residents turn in their gas-powered tools for vouchers toward electric replacements.
They gave me that voucher and I took that over to Home Depot and I got a nice mower for less than $30. It's a lot easier to start, a lot quieter, a lot lighter. The battery, you just put it on your charger and you're ready to go the next day.
Zero emission equipment is cleaner, quieter, and makes our air healthier. To apply, visit pima.gov/cutpollution.
That was produced by our communications folks to help promote
Gus
the program. And there's more that you can find on our website as well. So we do have restrictions on the value of the vouchers because of the state statutes. 474.02, and it's for the state of Arizona, and it says that counties who have 500, population of 500,000 need to provide a program like this. It's a voluntary program for our community to trade in their gas equipment. And it states here that for commercial mowers, we can only give $200 worth. And so we based the rest off, we needed to have a smaller value for the ones going for residential, just to differentiate commercial versus residential a little bit. And a minimum of $100 according to the statute. So at least we upped that to $150. And $50 for the devices is what was decided years ago. About a year ago or so, we tried to raise it a little bit. We couldn't do anything with the commercial mower, but we did try to raise the value of the vouchers for the residential mowers and the devices, but the state didn't want us to because they needed a consistent program with Maricopa County. So we were shot down on that. So our website is where you can get all this information, and that's where the process starts for people to turn in the equipment. So I've attached a snip of our website and I highlighted in yellow where the link is to start the application. And so what happens, they go online, complete the application. I'll go in our Acela program to see any new applications that need to be reviewed. I check for addresses because, of course, there's the limitations with the residents. So check addresses, and if everything's good, I approve it, and they get an automatic email from Acela, our system, with drop-off forms, one form per piece of equipment that they want to turn in. So then the participant prints out the forms, and on the forms has a list of 5, soon to be 6, drop-off locations where they can take their equipment. They bring their equipment with the forms, drop off their equipment. The staff at the drop-off sites will sign and stamp the forms to prove that they turned in their equipment. They then take a picture, they email it or text back to me, and as proof that they turned it in, and so I can approve it. I go back in the system, and Acela emails them the vouchers, 1 voucher per piece of equipment. And then it's up to them to take their vouchers to Home Depot and use it towards the purchase of electric or zero emission, so electric or manual tools. To give you an idea of the amount of equipment that we've processed since the beginning, well, since January of 2020, that was when it was first launched, and through the end of October, we've received more than 1,000 pieces of equipment, most of them lawnmowers from residential, so 549 residential. You could see leaf blowers a fair amount, but next in line really was the string trimmers. They're pretty popular tools as well. And then as far as emission savings, from January 2020 through the end of last fiscal year, which ended June 2023, through the equipment that was relinquished, we reduced VOCs by almost 44 tons, carbon monoxide by 523 tons, the coarse particles 3 or almost 2.5 tons, and then nitrogen oxides a little bit more than 3 tons reduced. So there's not a whole lot of options for DEQ regarding trying to regulate, phase out or ban gas-powered lawn and garden equipment because air quality is too good here. Most of our days are considered green or in the good category. But there is the potential to push the phase out or ban due to noise or nuisance issues. However, our department does not handle that. When we get complaints about that, we forward it to the police department, City of Tucson, or the sheriff department, depending on what jurisdiction we're in. However, I do want to point out that if gas-powered equipment, particularly leaf blowers, if they are producing too much dust, you can make complaints to our office. Our number is there, and you can also go online and make a complaint that way. But keep in mind that this type of activity is very temporary, it's short-lived, and chances of our inspector being out there to observe a violation is pretty minimal. But if it's the same schedule that the landscapers come to do the work, if we're notified ahead of time, might be able to schedule something, so the likelihood of seeing it could be improved. So I would like to answer any questions. I'll leave my email and number up there just for a minute, but then I'll stop sharing, but I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Karen. And thank you, Stuart, for sharing and educating us. There was a question that I think I understood you to say. Dan Stormont asked, is the voucher only for Home Depot? And I think that's what I heard you to say.
Yeah, it is just for Home Depot. It's unfortunate, but just getting anybody up, it was a bear to to get this set up. And so we just restricted it to Home Depot for a couple of reasons. One, Maricopa County, they also do the same type of deal, and they use Home Depot, so we modeled it after them. We just kept it for consistency. But also a different program, I think it's Community Workforce Development with Pima County, also has an account with Home Depot, and so since the county already had one, we just decided to keep it with that.
I want to invite anybody at any time to share a question in the chat, but I see also Trace and Paula, one of you has a hand up. Why don't you go ahead and put your question out?
Okay, I have actually 2 questions. One going back to an early part of your presentation. If we were to reach non-attainment, say for ozone, what has to happen? And then the other question is, what do you do with the equipment that gets turned in?
Okay, I'll answer that one first. It's easier. The equipment that's turned in, it's rendered inoperable by the staff who's receiving the equipment. They puncture the crankcase or something, and then they separate out the metals and the plastics and they recycle what they can. And we also ask for the equipment to be emptied of gasoline and oil before it's brought to a place. Some of the places do have the ability to store the oil and fuel, but not all of them do. So your first question was about ozone, and if we were to violate that standard, what happens next? That is a really good question. Other people in my department could answer that better than I can, but from what I understand, first thing is we'd have to do an inventory of where ozone is coming from. And 2017 was the last time we did that, and we did it voluntarily. But it's been so long ago, I would imagine that we would need to redo that just to see where the sources are, the biggest sources. And then we would develop a plan to figure out how to reduce those sources where it's practical and effective. So when we did it in 1999, when we violated for the dust, it took some time to get that program rolling and developed. And they also, changed some of the rules and regulations so that could potentially happen with if we violate the ozone standard, we might have to amend some rules and regulations that are in place.
Okay, thanks.
Stuart asks, does the voucher make clear that hand tools are acceptable? I'm assuming he means things like rakes instead of a leaf blower, for instance.
Yes, it's been a while since I looked at the voucher. Definitely is on our website. It's spelled out. I'm pretty sure the vouchers say on them. And one thing that I also do is that when emails go out from Acela, I also send a personal email to everybody, really to make sure that they got the Acela one, because sometimes it goes into junk email, and sometimes they just miss it, or sometimes there's a glitch. And then I also spell out, I want to point out for the lawn mowers in particular, because the vouchers that we issue for that, because of the way the statute is written, they're supposed to be used for electric lawn mowers, period. Corded or cordless, battery, whichever. But it doesn't mention manual tools or, other lawn and garden equipment with it. But down here in Pima County, we don't enforce that part. It's a secret. We don't enforce that part because most people, or many people here, don't have lawns anymore, and they don't have a need for lawn mowers. It's very different from people in the Phoenix area. At least it has been. So I think that answers your question.
Clarence and Mimi ask, what about the health effects on the workers? Is there a way to regulate that?
That's a good question. Not from our department, because we're here to enforce the air quality rules and regulations, but it is to protect the health of the public, which includes the workers. If our air quality levels are so good, I know it's different. I mean, it seems like there should be a way to do that, like with OSHA. Something along that lines seems to me that could be possible, but that is not under our environmental quality's wheelhouse. We would enforce the rules though.
I have a question or an observation, let's say. I was looking up City of Tucson ordinances that might be pertinent to this, and found that there is a noise ordinance that does not allow sound levels above 70 decibels during the daytime hours to cross your property line, to enter your property line. Now, I did not look up how expensive is it to get a sound level meter to be able to measure the sound of machinery that's operating near your house. But I think they make pretty little ones that are probably fairly affordable if it's something that has bothered you. And then kind of look down, well, what happens if there's a violation? Well, you call the police and you report it. I think, and as I looked also researching the typical sound levels of gas-powered equipment, such as leaf blowers, the range at which they would be violating this ordinance would be if they're within 50 feet of your property line, they're likely to be violating that. And I would say that that's probably not an uncommon situation in Tucson.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And unfortunately, the only thing we can do when we get complaints about that is refer them to the police or the sheriff. And it's generally not a high priority for them, sadly to say. Other things that we recommend, especially if it's for landscape companies, is if the complainant approach them in a friendly manner. We also have information about leaf blowers. In particular, on our website, it's called Leaf Blower Matters or something like that. It's English and Spanish. Anyway, approaching people in a friendly manner might help them consider, and then promoting our Cut Down Pollution program. We have cards. Let's see if this will go. I guess it's not good. Anyway, we have promotional cards. I think we sent some to you a while ago, but we'd be happy to send more if anyone wants to, share information about this program. It might be enough of incentive to get them to at least look at it.
Karen, we've put those flyers out when we've been tabling, and people pick them up, and so we're trying to encourage them to share with any landscapers that they use, or to think about it for themselves if they're the ones that are doing the home yard care. But what we'll do is we have intended to put in the newsletter a link to this so that people can go to the website and see it and maybe print it out, or at least have the information to share. If anyone uses a landscaper, it's a good thing to share with them. I know I did, and it was good to have the Spanish on the flip side of the card that we've been distributing.
Thank you. I appreciate you doing that.
Well, we'll just keep going with it. So,
And just so you know, we do periodic advertising. Well, right now we have a bus ad on the back of 2 buses that have been circulating around for almost a year. It'll end in February. And then in the winter and in the spring, we're going to do some more advertising through social media. And then also there'll be a bill, like a flyer insert in a water bill. And that one I think is coming out in May.
Hmm.
And we'll keep trying.
Sometimes a way that these kinds of changes happen in a city is when a group of citizens holds certain entities like the city that represents them, or the county, or a university, to account for respecting neighbors. In other words, get these institutions to adopt the changes that we hope that others also will. And maybe, Stuart, you could speak a little bit to how you see a Sustainable Tucson campaign taking shape that might involve some of those kinds of efforts.
Well, I'll be glad to try. The city of Tucson has in its Tucson Resilient Together, the climate plan. In the energy section, the goal 1.7 is to phase out gas-powered equipment in city operations, gas-powered landscape equipment. So that is a stated goal in the climate plan. And Fatima Luna, the new chief resilience officer for the city, is right now doing an inventory of the equipment so she can submit a budget to the council next month. And so if you would like to put your support behind that, because the council is going to hear about this from her, it would be good if people would send a note to their council member that you are in support of the city taking that first step. Because if the city can do it, well, that's one step forward. Now, the county, Karen knows more about this, I think, than I do, but I'll see what I can say. The county talked to their landscaping employees a few years ago, and at that time, the leaf blowers, the electric ones, were not as reliable, apparently, or as powerful as the gas powered. And when you're used to using a tool, a lot of people don't want to change. You have to take a lot of convincing, and the county decided, well, we'll just let this go for now, but we're going to encourage the action of reaching out again to the county maintenance people who are employees of the county. Maybe Sandra Rosales will be a person who can help with that. She's a sustainability. Last I knew, she was a sustainability coordinator. UA is also looking at this for their climate plan. And the Pima Community College sustainability director has also approached their landscape management department. So we are offering our services as supporters in any way we can. And if all those 4 entities were to stop using equipment, that would be a great step forward.
So thank you for mentioning county too. And so you were talking about, we met with Natural Resources Parks and Rec, because they maintain all the parks for Pima County. And the good news is I approached them, well, within the last month. It was after one of our meetings. I reached out to a bunch of different departments to find out what equipment do they use if they're using lawn and garden equipment. So Natural Resources said they started like a year ago. They started using electric equipment, and they're finding good results so far. And they're meeting with manufacturers for larger equipment like mowers and even carts, so the little carts that they drive around. So at least that part is good. I talked to facilities management, and they use all electric equipment. Keno Sports Park, I think they use gas. Department of Transportation, they hire not a consultant, but AAA landscaping to do rights of ways, the medians and other stuff. And I believe they just use gas. But we're going to segue into Pima County's climate plan that we're trying to develop. And right now we have a survey out, and I think you shared that. We shared the survey with you, and you shared it with other people. So thank you for that. We also have cards. If you want a supply of cards, I'd be happy to hand those out. But that's quick. The survey ends December 31st. And we're launching a business one too, hopefully tomorrow or Friday. At any rate, it's possible that we might be able to include lawn and garden equipment in our climate plan as well for Pima County. And not just Pima County, operations, but for all Pima County.
Wait, can you say that last thing then again? What's
The climate plan that we're developing is for all of Pima County, not just for Pima County operations.
right? Okay.
If we were to include a thing, to reduce gas-powered lawn and garden equipment, chances are it would be for government type work. Also, that sparked a memory that Maricopa County up in Phoenix, they have non-attainment. I mean, they're in non-attainment for ozone and I think particulates as well. And they don't even have rules and they have some rules and regulations against using gas-powered lawn and garden equipment on high pollution advisory days. And the thing that it's restricted is use on government properties. So government employees are not, and their contractors, I believe, are not allowed to use gas-powered equipment on those high advisory days. And they just have a recommendation for the rest of the public to not use it, but they can't enforce that.
There's
Now-
a question. Sorry, go ahead,
Okay.
Stuart.
Well, I was thinking that I should let Fatima know about what Parks and Rec in the county are doing, because they might have some leads to her on pricing and
Oh, sure.
who the providers. So is there someone, maybe you could let me know if there's someone in particular to whom I could refer to.
Well, you could mention me or Natalie Shep or
Okay,
both of us.
okay.
Now, we do meet with Fatima, I think it's twice a month now, because they're part of our coalition to develop this climate plan.
Okay.
And I don't know when we're meeting next because the holiday's coming up, but it certainly can be something we can discuss.
Super.
Clarence and Mimi have a question in the chat regarding the University of Arizona and all of their lawn and grass work. And there is suggesting maybe that eliminating the grass would put a dent in emissions, but also maybe the high grass that they have, I don't know if they have a policy in place regarding the type of equipment that they use, but that might be something worth looking into, and it's a possible another line of dialogue that could be opened up. Well, I have a question for those who are in the chat, who are in the meeting now, and all of you are, most of you are muted. I invite you to unmute, and those of you who live in an HOA, do something to let us know. Put your picture up, say something. How many people are in the room are in a homeowners association?
So we are Mimi and Clarence.
Karen, it
Others?
looks like.
Maybe a few more. I'm wondering, do you know whether in your homeowners association there is a rule about noise levels, and that might affect the kind of equipment that's allowed to be used to do maintenance inside your the area of the homeowners association.
Well, I don't know for sure, but I seriously doubt there is anything.
I don't
Maybe
know.
that's
It's worth checking into.
it would be a conversation that could be started. How would it be if we would disallow gasoline, noisy, smelly, polluting items being used within our homeowners association? Maybe it wouldn't have to, it would have to be for contractors. You probably wouldn't want to take away the precious freedom of individual homeowners too much, but I don't know. Looks like I see Gordon has his hand up.
Well, yes, I do live in an HOA here, kind of in the northeast foothills, and our HOA contracts out our maintenance for would be using the blowers to an outside contractor, and we've brought this to their attention mostly for the noise because they started like 6 or 8 o'clock in the morning in the summer. You know, they're darn noisy, but they push back from the landscaping company is, of course, you know, the gas engines are more efficient. They have more output, and they have an investment in their current equipment. So we haven't made very good progress with that. But I think, Karen, that might be an area for you to reach out and more vigorously. I don't know if you have additional programs that could help them convert, because you know, cost is the big driving factor for them, and anything that would increase their costs would decrease their costs for making the transition would be helpful. But we don't actually live in the city. I'm still in the county, so there's been a pushback also that says, well, you don't live in the city, so the city ordinance doesn't apply. Well, you know, I kind of say, well, let's do what's right, not whether it's required or not. But
and the homeowners association probably would be within its rights to set rules like around things like that, noise levels at certain hours.
yes, it can do that, but it hasn't received much help from the board yet. But it's a good suggestion. I think at that level, you know, you could influence many more. You have a wider impact by influencing a few landscape contractors that have HOA business as part of their business portfolio. Yeah, I think if you could get a couple of them to move over, that counts for a lot.
Karen, you have your hand up.
Sure. Well, a couple of things. So regarding landscapers and homeowners associations, other like apartment complexes even, we've done mailings and emailings to share information about it, you know, just promoting the program. We've done a lot.
Yeah.
And we got little response, unfortunately. But I wonder also, so I do belong to a homeowners association, but it's more of a voluntary thing. I mean, our dues are only $20 a year, so it's very minimal. I do know that changing the CNRs is a bear, and you know, it's very difficult to get new rules in. But you could, if you have a website especially, you might consider doing the, you know, the voluntary aspect of it, you know, just sharing information about the program on the website. I did that with mine. And I also, when we have events, like we have this annual fun and feast, and we have movie nights and stuff, and I put the flyers out there also. I don't know how effective it is, but at least the information is out there.
It looks like Ben's cat has a paw up.
Just the observation that Gordon made. Someone told him that the gasoline equipment is more efficient. It's not. Anything that is electric nowadays is not only cleaner, but it is more efficient. Just from a nerdy perspective, I know there is such a thing as a robotic electric lawnmower nowadays. You can actually buy one. And, you know, I don't know how the landscapers feel about having their labor force reduced with automation, but electric automatic lawnmowers are a thing now.
Yeah, we don't have lawnmowers. We just have the weed blowers. And you bring up a good point. The facts probably point to the electric being more efficient. However, the perception is different. And so there's an education process that's involved to overcome that current perception of the advantages of one to the next.
I think Stuart's Manzanita has a branch up.
Thank you. A couple of thoughts. I live in a neighborhood where the association is very strong. And if people want to get some local change, they go to the board meetings or they get together with their neighbors and they really talk. And there are things that have happened. Certain developments that looked like they were for sure going to happen were prevented, or they were mollified in a way that really kept the quality of the neighborhood and the quality of the arterials and so on, without just people coming through with a steamroller and a lot of brick. So I think that communicating is so valuable, as a lot of people have been indicating here. And yeah, you're right. Just a letter that comes from Pima to a homeowners association, who knows who's going to open that, who, even if they think, well, that's sensible, who do they give it to, and so on. But if there are people in a homeowners association that start talking with each other, things can happen. Agua Dulce is one of those that has really turned their landscaping profile around a great deal. Jana and Dan know about that. They had one of the lead residents at that association talk to their water committee, and through careful planning and doing some numbers and getting consensus, they were able to reduce water usage a great deal on that property. So I asked them, how are they doing with leaf blowers? They say, rarely, if ever, is a gas-powered leaf blower used in our HOA. So I'll be talking to them on Friday to hear how they do that. And I would encourage you, if you think this would be fun to engage with a bit, to write to me, or if you can't remember, I'm Stuart, and it's just Stuart at Sustainable Tucson. I can let you know when we'll have a training. We're talking about in January training folks, just have an hour training in some of the basic concepts and in some of the niceties of presenting, so that we could be ready to go to, whether it's a board meeting of our neighborhood association or a board meeting of the HOA, or talking to your neighborhood landscaper, or going to the city council. There are ways to gather our thoughts and to come across in a kind and friendly way, as Karen was saying, where people really could hear and could respond. And we'd love to include you in that. Since there's a gap here, I'll say, I talked to one of the landscapers whom Karen mentioned to me. I said, his name is Alan Rahm. I said, what inspired you to connect with the county's program, this cut pollution? He said, the same thing that I think most people want to do, the emissions. As Karen explained, a little blower emits a lot of pollution. That's just how I saw it. He said, this program is very good. It should be permanent, meaning the cut pollution program. People will want to do it, but you have to give them time. They will come to it one by one. So those are just a few of the words from Alan Rahm, a landscaper who has turned in several pieces of equipment to get the voucher. And I will cede the floor back to Dwayne.
Thank you, Karen. I know you have your hand up, and I'm going to ask a question, if you can answer, as well as whatever comment you'd like to make. We know a landscaper who does not have email. Is there a way for a person without email to get a voucher?
Yes, we just do it by phone. I just have them on the phone, and well, if they can do it online, if they have access to the internet, if they can still submit that, and then I can mail the drop-off form and the vouchers. But if they don't have email, the easiest thing would probably just to have me on the phone, and I would enter their application for them, and then put my email address in, so I would receive the forms, and then I'd know to mail it to them.
Thank you.
One thing I should mention about that is that there is a timeline. So there's 3 weeks from date of issue to before the drop-off form expires, and the same with the voucher. So putting it through the mail could eat a couple days up, but also if people cannot turn in their equipment or use their voucher within that time frame, I can renew it. as long as there's money in the system, which we haven't gone close to the end of the budget yet, so it shouldn't be an issue. This program is very underutilized. But I also wanted to make one other point. When we met with Pima County Parks and Rec a while ago, it was sort of like a focus group to find out what the feasibility would be for them to switch. And a lot of the reasons they were putting forward was for worker health and safety, actually. They talked about the heat, so that gas-powered equipment, at least a couple years ago, was more powerful, and so people wouldn't have to spend as much time using the equipment out there. And if they switched to electric, less powerful, it would take them longer to get the job done, and so they would be exposed to the heat more. So that was one reason. But as I mentioned earlier, they're changing their tune. You know, maybe technology has improved, they've grown greater interest, but I know they had support from their director to start moving towards electric. So that's a good sign.
Paula or Trace, yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to follow up on one thing that Stuart mentioned, which is the sustainable leadership training, the workshop on speaking on how to be an effective speaker. And there's information, he put his email in the chat, but there's also information about that in our newsletter. And if anyone, for instance, if you learned about the meeting through Meetup rather than through the newsletter, if you're interested in getting the newsletter emailed to you, you can contact me, Paula, at sustainabletucson.org, or you can go to our website and there's a place to click and sign up for the newsletter there. And it's got information about meetings, ambassadors, the leadership training workshops, and all sorts of stuff with our committees and many of the activities around town. So again, if you want to get the newsletter, Paula at sustainabletucson.org, and we'll add you to the email list.
Just one moment, Jen Lynn, I'll have you, but I wanted to let also people know that there's a clean sweep document that just outlines a lot of the things presented tonight, and you should be able to access it in your chat. Go ahead, Jen Lynn.
Yeah, just reflecting a little bit on what Stuart was saying. I went to a food cycle at home program information presentation, and the room was packed. And so I'm thinking that if we pair our concern about the noise and the pollution and all of that with the enthusiasm for doing things greener and being more conscious, I think that could be very helpful too.
Thank you. Jana?
Hi, I'm Janice Siegel-Stormont, and I'm the head of the Environmental Advocacy Group and the Water Committee. And I put in the thing that Environmental Day at the Capitol is January 25th. If you want to advocate with your state legislatures, there's a link to the blog. And also, I think in Paula's newsletter, they talked about that you can, there's an advocacy workshop that you can take that had the wrong date. And it is actually, it's on that thing. My thing cut and pasted wrong. Just a second. It's actually Thursday, December 14th, from 5:30 to 6:30, and that will tell you like all the ways you can be an environmental advocate. And that link that I have has a link to how you can register for both of the events, and there's even a free bus that goes down to the Capitol. So it's a fun thing. I know Dwayne's done it before, and it's a great way to hang out with all the other organizations and environmentalists that are working to make, our state more environmentally sound. And, and the theme this time is water.
Thanks, Jenna. And Karen.
I saw a question in the chat from Dan. Tucson has started to seriously track water conservation from their rebate programs. Is the county doing the same for pollution reduction from this program? Yeah, we do have an annual report. So we are grant funded by the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality, and we provide monthly reports. And for the annual report, we do figure out emission savings. And that's how I got the chart a little bit earlier. And there was a formula provided from ADEQ, and I fill in the information about the type of device and the year it was manufactured, because through time, different devices had different standards according to years. And so that's how we calculate emission savings.